Hi, welcome back to Untold History. My name's Abby.
I'm Jillian.
And today for our last episode, we are covering the Chernobyl disaster. On April 26, 1986, it was considered the worst nuclear disaster in history. Chernobyl is located in northern Ukraine, about 80 miles north of Kiev. A small town, Pripyat, was constructed a few miles from the site of the nuclear plant to accommodate workers and their families. Construction of the Chernobyl power plant began in 1977 when the country was still a part of the Soviet Union, and by 1983, 4 reactors had been completed, and the addition of 2 more reactors was planned in subsequent years. The explosion started as a routine exercise test of the emergency water cooling system and would work during a power loss at 1:23 a.m. on April 26th. Several critical safety systems were turned off to conduct the test, and the reactor was operated at unstable low power levels. There were several design flaws, including positive void coefficient and control rods that initially increased reactivity when inserted. There was a flaw where when water turned into steam, it made the reactor stronger instead of weaker, which is the opposite of what should happen. Also, when workers tried to shut it down, the control rods caused a quick burst of extra power, making the situation worse instead of stopping it right away.
So, just in kids' terms, the first one would be if you had a fire and you try to put it out with water, but instead of going out, it just became bigger.
Like a gas fire.
Yeah. And then the second one was if you're in a car and you push on the brake, instead of it stopping right away, it's it goes quicker for a second. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what it is.
Yeah. So each thing doing the opposite of what should happen, pretty much. And within seconds, an uncontrolled reaction caused pressure to build up in reactor number 4 in the form of steam. The steam blasted the roof off the reactor, releasing fumes of radiation and chunks of burning radioactive debris. About 2 to 3 seconds later, a standard explosion hurled out additional fuel. A fire started on the roof of reactor number 3, risking a breach of that facility. Automatic safety systems that would normally have kicked into action did not because they had been shut down prior to the test. The reactor type, known as RBMK, had design flaws that made it unstable under certain conditions. The 2 massive explosions blew the 1,000-ton roof off one of the plant's reactors and released 400 times the radiation in the air than the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. Firefighters arrived at the scene within minutes and began to fight the blaze without gear to protect them from radiation. Many of them would soon number among the 28 killed by acute radiation exposure. Eyewitness accounts of the firefighters who had helped battle the fires described the radiation as tasting like metal and feeling pains like pins and needles on their face, according to the CBC documentary series Witness. Days later, many of those firefighters would be dead. Fires burned for several days. However, it wasn't until 5 a.m. the following morning that reactor number 3 was shut down. In the span of 24 hours, number 1 and number 2 were also shut down. It took nearly 2 weeks to extinguish all the fires using sand, nitrogen, and lead. The damaged plant released a large quantity of radioactive substances, including iodine-131, cesium-137, plutonium, and strontium-90, into the air for over a period of 10 days. The radioactive cloud was deposited nearby as dust and debris, but was also carried by wind over the Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, Scandinavia, and other parts of Europe.
The disaster. The neighboring town of Pripyat went on as usual for almost a day, and it wasn't until the next day, April 27th, that they started evacuating the town. Evacuating began 36 hours after the explosion. Originally, there were few signs of danger unfolding miles away. However, the government helped to evacuate 50,000 residents from their home. They were told they were only going to be away from their homes for a few days, so they took very little with them. However, most would never return back to their homes after that. The Soviet forced to publicize the news of the disaster when Swedish leaders demanded an explanation. It wasn't until April 28th that the news reported there had been a disaster at the nuclear power plant and that the authorities were handling it. 3 days later, the Soviet went on with their May Day parade, where they celebrated workers even though there were still hazardous amounts of radiation in the area. At this time, most people, even in Ukraine, were still unaware of the accident, the deaths, and the evacuation of the nearby town. Deep within the basement of Reactor 4 lies the Chernobyl Elephant's Foot, a huge mass of melted concrete, sand, and highly radioactive nuclear fuel. The mass was named for its wrinkled appearance, which reminded some observers of the wrinkled skin of an elephant's leg and foot. In the 1980s, the elephant's foot gave off an estimated 10,000 roentgens of radiation each hour, enough to kill a person 3 feet away in less than 2 minutes. By 2001, that rate had dropped to roughly 800 roentgens per hour.
The aftermath. The worst nuclear disaster in history killed 2 workers in the explosion, and within months, at least 28 more would be dead by acute radiation exposure. Eventually, thousands of people would show signs of health issues, including cancer from the fallout. The Chernobyl disaster led many to fear the dangers of nuclear power plant and exposed the Soviet government lack of openness to the Soviet people. This ultimately led the Soviet Union to billions in cleanup cost, and many had said that it would be related to the Soviets' downfall 5 years prior. 5 years later. In an attempt to contain the fallout, on May 14th, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev ordered the dispatch of hundreds of thousands of people, including firefighters, military reservists, and miners, to the site to aid in cleanup. The corps worked steadily, often with inadequate protective gear, through 1989 to clear debris and contain the disaster. Over a hurried construction period of 206 days, crews erected a steel and cement sarcophagus to entomb the endangered reactor and contain any further release of radiation. They would only work on it for 7 minutes at a time to decrease the amount of radiation that they would take in, and would throw away their clothes after. Starting in 2010, an international consortium organized the building of a bigger, more secure sarcophagus for the site. The 35,000-ton new safe confinement was built on tracks and then slid over the damaged reactor and existing sarcophagus in November 2016. After the installation of the new structure, radiation near the plant dropped to just 1/10 of previous levels, according to the original figures. The structure was designed to contain radioactive debris for 100 years. In 1995, Ukraine's government claimed that 125,000 people had died from the Chernobyl disaster, and in a 2005 report, they estimated that while fewer than 50 people were directly killed in the Chernobyl disaster, up to 9,000 would have later died due to cancer and other diseases caused by the radiation exposure. A 2011 study reported that the radioactive known as iodine-131 from Chernobyl's fallout was likely a cause of thyroid cancer that was still being reported by children and adolescents in the area during the time. Apart from the ever-folding human toll from the disaster, the Chernobyl accident also left behind a huge area of radiation-tainted land. A 770-mile-wide Chernobyl exclusion zone around the site isn't considered safe for human habitation and can't be used for logging or agriculture due to contained plants and soil. By 2017, however, entrepreneurs found a new use for the territory. In December 2017, a Ukraine-German company, Solar Chernobyl, announced construction of a massive solar power plant in the abandoned territory. The 1-megawatt power plant, built just a few hundred feet from the damaged reactor 4, was fitted with 3,800 photovoltaic panels. The Ukrainian government said that a collection of companies plan to eventually develop up to 99 more megawatts of solar power at the area. That's a lot of power, but still not close enough to the former output of the ruined nuclear power plant. At the same time of the accident, Chernobyl's 4 reactors could generate 1,000 megawatts each.
By the way, a sarcophagus is just like a stone coffin of some sort. The impact. Because of Chernobyl, nuclear power was seen as relatively safe and tightly controlled. Countries strengthened reactor safety and oversight, and the International Atomic Energy Agency expanded its role in monitoring and setting safety protocols. Many countries paused or halted their nuclear programs, and anti-nuclear movements were started globally. It also had scientific advantages in helping scientists study long-term health conditions of radiation exposure and how it impacts humans and animals. There were also major research into cancers, specifically thyroid cancer. Chernobyl forced countries and the people to look more carefully into the government and safety measures, especially of nuclear power. It helped to shape new studies of cancer and safety in workplace environments and news reporting systems.
Meanwhile, wildlife such as boars, wolves, beavers, and bison show signs of flourishing at the Chernobyl site, according to the study in 2016. The research had pointed out that while the radiation cannot be good for the animals, lack of humans outweighed radiation risk. Humans, on the other hand, aren't expected to repopulate the area anytime soon. Ukrainian authorities have said that it will not be safe for people to live in Chernobyl exclusion zone for more than 25,000 years. Today, tourists can visit the site, which appears frozen in time, apart from signs of looting, natural weathering, and the encroachment of nature. And that is our conclusion on Chernobyl.
Yes.
I knew about Chernobyl before this, but the reason that we chose to do it was because her and other friends of ours did not know about it.
Not so much we didn't know about it. Okay, like we didn't know about it. But like I had heard of it, and I had heard of I think it was a movie that they made about it, but I never actually knew the details of it, so...
Oh, yes, there is an HBO series called Chernobyl if you want more research.
Oh, yeah, if you watch the new The Bride movie, I work in a movie theater, so I know, guys. she was in that, the girl that stars in the show. So.
Mm-hmm. No, like, our parents, like, so they were alive at the time, so they knew these things about it. I was talking to my mom about it, and she was like, oh, yeah, like, I remember hearing about it, and I remember hearing about the whole thing, that it became such, like, a known thing. However, at the time that it happened, like, the Soviet and the Ukrainian government hid it from their people and everything because they didn't want to show that the Soviets' power and government had been lacking and that, like, the people couldn't trust in them, which honestly just shows a lot of how they perceived power and everything. But back on your impact section, it did change a lot of things. Like, it made sure that, like, now nuclear plants or anything are really safe and they have safety measures and there's nothing that goes unchecked. It made people start to question, like, how facilities and governments and things take care of things and, like, the safety measures that they implement. And it really did help to just make a safer nuclear thing, so that way, like, environment, so that way this cannot happen again, because this did cause many deaths, not directly, but after the fact, because of all the radiation poisoning in the area. So, yeah.
How long do you think it takes, like, when something happens nowadays, how long do you think it takes, like, news outlets and the government to, like, put it out there?
An hour, 30 minutes.
It took a minute for them to actually
It took them a day, and they were forced to.
Yeah.
Versus things that happen, like, even things that I can say that happen in North Carolina, like, the news gets on it within, like, 30 minutes. Like, I remember, like, I watch the news every night, like, because why not?
Yeah, that's horrific.
Yeah, and, like, they'll be like, this happened an hour ago at this place. And so I'm like, news things get on it.
Okay, so we've gotten better at that.
That is another thing, is actually reporting things and making sure that we stay on top of disasters, because
holding people accountable.
People deserve to know, because a day, can you think about, like, all of this is going on? There's a crazy fire, there's a whole bunch of disaster, a bunch of
firefighters, people that work there,
right,
dead, families don't know,
radioactive stuff all in the air, and people are just living their lives perfect, like, acting like nothing happened.
36 hours you're living in a town right next to a massive radiation explosion,
and you just don't know.
You're just cooking
and
dinner.
You're inhaling that radiation.
36 hours.
Which really has you thinking about, like, how little they knew.
And they probably only took, like, a book bag with them.
Yeah.
So all
because
this stuff
that was another
stuck.
thing, the fact that the government told them that they were only going to be gone for a little bit of time, so people didn't take much with them.
And you're still not even allowed to really go there now.
Yeah, and most people never returned back to their homes.
It's been what? 26, like 40, no, like 50.
40 years ago. 40.
Is it 40?
40 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah. And actually, 40 years ago, it's happened on April 26th. It is currently April 22nd. So almost exactly 40 years ago, which is crazy. So, yeah, it's a weird thing, but
it's very interesting.
It is very interesting. But yeah, that is our last podcast for Untold History. We will be posting just what we're putting for our final project, just a collection of our videos over time where we show our progress. And then we are also going to be putting our amazing blooper reel in here.
And we have a lot of them.
We do have a lot of them. All the things that we cut out of here that y'all obviously don't know. But yeah, so please, if you want to go watch that, if anybody watched this, feel free to put in the comments that you were here. But if not, we are signing off. Again, I am Abby.
I am Jillian, and this is
Untold History. Thank you, guys.